Hello, my name is Jody Gerstner, and I was the Assistant Electronics Chairman for the 1981 float entry Snowpoke. Snowpoke was the winner of the first place Class H award in the Rose Parade that year. I distinctly remember working with the chairman, the electronics chairman from Pomona, Peter Hadinger, that was the year that we introduced a new technology from Rockwell International called bubble memory. It was, unbeknownst to anyone else, a complete failure and never actually worked, but it was great press during the time that we attempted to make it work. That year was also the year that we had a new animation system on the float. Peter, who was a fantastic electronic designer, put together a new system, and it actually worked successfully for the float that year. The parade was relatively unremarkable. We didn't get towed, which at that point in our time was somewhat remarkable. It was also, back at that time, a fully floured float. These days, floats use a lot of dried products, but back in '81, the Snowpoke float was 100% flour covered. Very impressive. That year was the first year that I got to ride in a float, and for those who remember, it was a two-part float. There was the inchworm in the front, and then it was towing a snail in the back, and we rode up in the snail. That year, unlike years before, there were two separate engines: the drive engine and the animation pump for the Caterpillar was up front, and a separate animation engine was in the snail in the back. We rode in the back inside the snail. I think we forgot about the fact that you need to vent the heat from the engine, and things were very comfortable for the first 15 minutes of the parade, and then I remember probably an hour in, things getting very, very warm inside the snail. We opened up a hatch. It was like a chimney with the heat rushing out the top. Amazingly, we survived, but it was a very, very hot ride for a 3-hour parade. I do remember one of the construction members from San Luis Obispo, Peter Bradstreet, was riding with us, and he had the ever-popular fire extinguisher, water fire extinguisher, that was used to spray water on the Cal Poly kids sitting in front of the Norton Simon Museum. A tradition that had gone on for years, which did not go over very well with the Tournament of Roses, and continued to go on for a few more years until the tournament somehow convinced us to stop. But I'm proud to say to have been that I was part of that tradition for at least that year. I do remember also, as the Assistant Electronics Chair that year, I was responsible for the intercabling between the front of the float, the Caterpillar, and the back of the float, the snail. And as part of a donation, back when we had a very good relationship with ITT Cannon, we were the recipient of some very expensive connectors. And as part of my strategy, I connectorized the front of the float to the back of the float, so disassembly after the parade was over would be very simple. I probably forgot to tell people that that connector was there, because after we were done, somebody separated the float and all the electrical cables with a bolt cutter. And I remember finding that was about 12 inches away from this $1,000 connector, which I had received from ITT Cannon. I still remember that to this day, and we'll make sure to tell people about things like that in the future. Anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity to reminisce about the 1981 Cal Poly entry Snowpoke.